Muslims claim there are irreconcilable contradictions in the New Testament documents which allegedly prove the Bible to be false. However, such Muslims are inconsistent since they use arguments on this issue from unbelieving naturalist materialist scholars who do not believe in the supernatural or in the possibility of harmonization. Yet, these same Muslims nevertheless believe in trying to harmonize Quranic texts non-Muslims allege to be contradictory. This is hypocritical. Also, the Quran, the Sunnah, and the Sirah literature claim the Bible is uncorrupted and in pristine form, so Muslims are running a fool's errand on this issue. See Quran 4:136, 5:46-47, 568, Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 38, number 4434, and Ibn Ishaq's Life of Muhammad, pages 102-104 and 268. Moreover, rarely do Muslims study the bulk of Christian scholarly works which address the so-called contradictions unbelievers bring up. For example, Gleason Archer's Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, Geisler's and Howe's Big Book of Bible Contradictions, Haley's Alleged Discrepancies of the Bible, Arndt's, Horber's, and Rohr's Bible Difficulties and Seeming Contradictions, etc. In-depth conservative exegetical commentary sets also do a good job at addressing alleged contradictions. For example, the PNTC, the NICNT, the BECNT, and the EBC. One of the lists of alleged contradictions Muslims like to parrot come from Bart Ehrman. He often offers the following bunch.
What day did Jesus die on? And what time of day? Did he die on the day before the Passover meal was eaten, as John explicitly says, or did he die after it was eaten, as Mark explicitly says? Did he die at noon, as in John, or at 9 a.m., as in Mark? Did Jesus carry his cross the entire way himself, or did Simon of Cyrene carry his cross? It depends which gospel you read. Did both robbers mock Jesus on the cross, or did only one of them mock him and the other come to his defense? It depends which gospel you read. Did the curtain in the temple rip in half before Jesus died or after he died? It depends which gospel you read. Or take the accounts of the resurrection. Who went to the tomb on the third day? Was it Mary alone, or was it Mary with other women? If it was Mary with other women, how many other women were there? Which ones were they, and what were their names? Was the stone rolled away before they got there, or not? What did they see in the tomb? Did they see a man? Did they see two men? Or did they see an angel? It depends which account you read. What were they told to tell the disciples? Were the disciples supposed to go to Jerusalem and see Jesus there? Were they supposed to stay in Jerusalem and see Jesus there? Or were they to go to Galilee and see Jesus there? Did the women tell anyone or not? It depends which gospel you read. Did the disciples never leave Jerusalem? Or did they immediately leave Jerusalem and go to Galilee? All of these depend on which account you read.
Now, quickly listing these off with slight anger and lots of authority in your voice can sound convincing, but examining each one carefully yields different results. We will cover each one. So did Jesus die the day before the Passover meal was eaten, as John explicitly says? Or did he die after it was eaten, as Mark explicitly says? Well, John does not explicitly say Jesus died the day before Passover meal was eaten. He instead says Jesus died on the, quote, day of preparation of the Passover, unquote, John 19:14, which refers not to the day of preparation for the Passover meal, which was on Thursday. Instead, the phrase is periskue tau pascha, and it refers to the day of preparation of Passover week, which was indeed on Friday. D.A. Carson proves this with the following ancient references. So, when Mark says Jesus died the day after Passover meal, see Mark 14:21 and 15:1, which was Friday, there is no contradiction because John is saying he died on the day of preparation of Passover week, which was also Friday. So both agree. So did Jesus die at noon, as in John, or at 9 a.m., as in Mark? Well, this is a very sloppy one. Mark does not say Jesus died at 9 a.m. Mark 15:25 says Jesus was crucified at 9 a.m. Big difference. However, Mark goes on to say in Mark 15:34-37 that at the 9th hour, or 3 p.m., Jesus, quote, uttered a loud cry and breathed his last, unquote. So Jesus died at 3 p.m. according to Mark, not 9 a.m. Ehrman must not have read this text. Now, John 19:14 says Jesus was carried away to be crucified at, quote, about the 6th hour, unquote. This is going by Roman time, since John wrote in Ephesus, the Roman province of Asia. This means Jesus was carried away to be crucified at about 6 a.m. according to John, and was actually crucified at 9 a.m. according to Mark. And again, he died later that day at 3 p.m. according to Mark 15:34-37. Hence, the times of crucifixion in the two accounts are tight together, and there is no contradiction. Did Jesus carry his cross the entire way himself, or did Simon of Cyrene carry his cross? Well, John 19:17 does say Jesus bore his own cross to Golgotha, and the synoptics say Simon of Cyrene helped part of the way. See Mark 15:21, Matthew 27:32, and Luke 23:26. This is because of Jesus' weakened state from being flogged. However, John does not say only Jesus carried the cross the whole way, or that Simon of Cyrene did not help him. That is read into the text. John simply chose to omit this part of the journey to Golgotha because it was distracting from the themes of his gospel, such as God's sovereign plan, the Son's voluntarism, etc. But, as we've said, John does not deny that he had help. He just chose not to mention the part of the journey where he received the help. That's not a contradiction. Now, did both robbers mock Jesus on the cross, or did only one of them mock him and the other come to his defense? Well, Matthew 27:44 does say the robbers mocked Jesus, and Luke 23:39-43 says one of the robbers rebuked the other and defended Christ. However, the answer is obviously one of the robbers on his increasingly hard cross repented after reviling Jesus and then defended him due to fearing God, Luke 23:40, and from being impressed by the way Jesus bore the situation. Matthew records the reviling, and Luke records the repentance. Luke's early L material, or eyewitness sources, see Luke 1:1-3, he possessed, likely provided him with this part of the story that Matthew did not include. This is not a contradiction. So did the curtain in the temple rip in half before Jesus died, or after he died? Well, Mark 15:37-38 and Matthew 27:50-51 affirm the veil of the temple tore at the same time Jesus died. Luke 23:45-46 appears to say the veil ripped before he died in some translations, since they will say, quote, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit, and having said this he breathed his last, unquote. However, when in certain translations, verse 46 starts with the word then, and then proceeds to mention Jesus' death, although it appears to mean Jesus' death happened after the ripping of the veil, this is false. The word for then here is kai in the original Greek, and it's a particle that can also mean and, which allows for the veil ripping at the same time as Jesus' death. Instead of then connecting the sentences, and would be. Luke would simply be mentioning different events here, not giving a chronological order to them. Such translations which use and here instead of then include the NASB, the KJV, the HCSB, the ABPE, the DRB, the DBT, the ERV, the WBT, and the YLT. Moreover, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all affirm the temple was torn on the 9th hour, i.e. 3 p.m. See Mark 15:34 and 37-39, Matthew 27:46 and 51, and Luke 23:44-46. Thus, they all agree on the time the veil tore. So, who went to the tomb on the third day? Was it Mary alone, or was it Mary with other women? If it was Mary with other women, how many other women were there? Which ones were they? And what were their names? The answer is Mark 16:1 shows 3 women went there, the 2 Marys and Salome. Luke 23:55-56 and 24:1 just say it was a group of women who entered it without naming them. No contradiction there. And Matthew chose to mention only the 2 Marys, see Matthew 28:1, because it was inconvenient to mention Salome, who was not essential to the story. Matthew does not say Salome was not present, he just emphasizes the 2 Marys for his own purpose. So there's no contradiction here. Also, none of the Gospels say Mary was alone, contra Hermen. However, because John 21 says Mary Magdalene went to the tomb, this is why Hermen claims John has her going alone. But the text does not say only Mary went to it, just that she did in fact go to it. Moreover, the very next verse, John 22, shows Mary was not alone according to John. It says, quote, "So she, Mary Magdalene, ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, 'They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him,'" unquote. Who is the "we" here? They are Mary and the other women whom Mark and Matthew mention, of course. So John does not teach Mary went alone, and there is no contradiction. So, was the stone rolled away before they got there or not? Well, Mark 16:3-4, Luke 24:1-2, and John 21 all clearly agree the stone was moved before they got there. It's just that a sloppy, liberal reading of Matthew 28:1-2 has confused Hermen to think that it teaches the stone was rolled away after they got there. The text says, "Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb, and behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it," unquote. However, there's nothing actually in the text indicating the stone was rolled after they got there. All we're told is they went to see the tomb, verse 1, and also that the stone was rolled away, verse 2. It doesn't say after they got there that it was rolled away. Hermen has to read that into the text. Now, did they see a man, did they see two men, or did they see an angel? Well, Mark 16:5 says the women saw a young man with a white robe. Matthew 28:2-3 and John 20:12 correctly interpret this to be an angelic visitation. That Matthew and John were correct to infer Mark spoke of an angelic visitation is evidenced by the fact that, as in Mark, angels often appeared in human form in the Old Testament, and the white apparel and revelatory message in Mark indicates it was an angel as well. Moreover, the early Jewish historian Josephus shows first-century Jews believed angels did appear in beautiful human form. So there's no contradiction. The evidence proves in all Gospels this was an angelic visitation. How many angels did they see? The answer is Mark and Matthew mention one, see Mark 16:5 and Matthew 28:2, and Luke and John mention two, Luke 24:2 and John 20:12. But that doesn't mean that Matthew and Mark believed only one was there. Where there are two angels, there is at least one, and Mark and Matthew simply chose to mention one of them. Why? Well, Blomberg notes, quote, "It is more natural to suggest that there really were two characters present in each case, but that one dominated the scene in a way that left the other easily ignored in narratives that so regularly omitted non-essential details," unquote. Thus, there's no contradiction. What were they told to tell the disciples? Well, in Mark 16:6-7 and Matthew 28:5-7, they're told Jesus rose and that they must go to Galilee to tell the others. In Luke 24:5-7, they're told Jesus rose, but Luke simply omits the command to go to Galilee because he doesn't plan on narrating any Galilean appearances in his gospel. No contradiction. Luke doesn't say they were not told to go to Galilee. Were the disciples supposed to stay in Jerusalem and see Jesus there, or were they to go to Galilee and see Jesus there? Yes, they were to go to Galilee, Mark 16:6-7, Matthew 28:5-7, as noted before. It's just that, again, Luke simply omits the command to go to Galilee because he doesn't plan on narrating any Galilean experiences in his gospel. No contradiction. Did the women tell anyone or not? Yes, Mark 16:7, Matthew 28:7-8, Luke 24:9, and John 20:18 indicate the women told the disciples. It's just that when Mark 16:8 says, quote, "They said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid," unquote, Hermen takes this to mean that they did not tell the disciples, even though they were told to tell the disciples in Mark 16:7. However, all that verse 8 means is that as they ran back to the disciples, they did not tell anyone due to fear. As Robert Gundley aptly observes, quote, "We wouldn't know this episode if the women hadn't told about it." Did the disciples never leave Jerusalem, or did they immediately leave Jerusalem and go to Galilee? Yes, again, they went to Galilee. Mark 16, 6-7, Matthew 28, 5-7. Luke simply omits the command to go to Galilee because he doesn't plan on narrating any Galilean appearances in his gospel. So as one can see, it's very easy to make mountains out of molehills and convince an audience there are Bible contradictions, just as long as you speak with authority, very quickly, and with slight anger in your voice. But when the texts are closely examined, we see there are no real contradictions. Thanks for watching.